Today we will study this topic, asynchronous data transfer. So what is asynchronous data transfer? Whenever data is transmitted in a computer system or between a computer and the peripheral devices, it can be in two ways. It can either be in a synchronous manner or it can be in asynchronous manner. Synchronous means when both the sender and the receiver have a common clock and all the transfer is done based on that clock. In other words, both the sender and the receiver are in sync, they are synchronized. So for this common clock, there will be a common pulse generator, clock pulse generator, which will generate clock pulses, and on every clock pulse, some work will be done. There is another way of transmitting data that is called asynchronous mode of transfer. This is used where the clocks of the sender and the receiver are different. So they are not in sync with each other. There are two methods of asynchronous data transfer. One is called strobe control, another is called handshaking. We will take both one by one. So the first method is strobe control method. In this method, there is a single control line. Since we have to transfer data, naturally there will be a data bus, and in addition to that there will be a single control line. So what is the purpose of this single control line? We will see that, but first I'm categorizing here that the strobe method can be of two types. Either it may be a source initiated strobe control, or it may be a destination initiated strobe control. So let us first see what is this source initiated strobe for data transfer. So there, this thing is the block diagram of source initiated strobe control mechanism. It says that I have a source which has to send data and a destination which has to receive data. Maybe it may be a CPU, and this may be the main memory or a peripheral device. So this, for example, the CPU wants to send data here, so it will send through data bus. But in addition to data bus, there will be a control line called strobe. This strobe will tell whether this data is valid or not. Whether the destination should accept this data or not depends on this control signal. So how will be the transfer occur? First, the source will put data on the data bus. So this 0 means that data is not on the data bus, but this thing means that now the data is on the data bus. So the source has put the data on the data bus, and after some nanoseconds, it puts on this, it turns this strobe signal to 1, this signal, which is an indication that this data is valid data. So because this is on, the destination comes to know that this is a valid data and it accepts this data. After some time, the strobe goes down and this becomes an invalid data, and now the destination will not accept it. So this is source initiated strobe, where the strobe signal goes from source to destination. it can also be the other way. This is destination initiated strobe. Exactly the same diagram, but the strobe is going from destination to source. It is a case where the destination is telling the source to send the data. I am ready to accept it. Please send the data. So what will happen? First, the strobe signal will be put on. This x-axis represents time. So we can see the data goes on after some time, but first this destination puts on the strobe signal. This strobe signal is one which tells the source that destination is ready for accepting the data, and then the source will put on the data after some time. If you see here, first this comes up, then after some time this comes up. So the data will be put on the bus. After some time the strobe will go down, and the data after some nanoseconds will again be removed from the data bus. So this method is called a strobe way. There is a disadvantage of this method, that there is no acknowledgement that whether the receiver has received the data or not. We cannot know this. Whether the receiver has received the data or not, we cannot know this thing. This method of strobe control is asynchronous because both source and destination have separate clocks. They are not in sync with each other. They do not transmit data continuously. Only when at some point of time the destination wants some data, it will put on the strobe signal for that duration, indicating the source that I want data. Then the data will be transmitted to the destination. Had it been a synchronous thing, you don't need this. Data will continuously be, with every clock cycle, data will be transmitted to the destination. So this is an asynchronous method. So the problem with strobe, that there is no acknowledgement of data. We never know whether the receiver has received the data or not. This problem is solved in the next method called handshaking method. So the name itself specifies handshaking. That means there will be true control lines. The second control line will be for acknowledging, handshake. The if the source gives a signal to the destination also puts forward his hand. That is acknowledgement. So this problem is solved, and this handshaking is a more reliable method. It is a more reliable method, obviously, because there is acknowledgement. But both methods are used when there is a transmission, for example, between CPU and main memory. Usually it may be a strobe method. But when there is a communication between CPU and an external input output device, for example keyboard, it may be a handshaking method. So in that case we need this method because we need an acknowledgement. Okay, in handshaking method we can add one thing. We can put a timeout mechanism also. What is that? That means that the source is sending a signal to the receiver for telling him that I am sending data. But if the receiver is not acknowledging for a certain amount of time, for example for 10 nanoseconds, then there will be a timeout thing. An alarm will be raised that since the receiver has not given any acknowledgement for a certain time, that means we will suppose that the receiver has not received the data. This is called timeout mechanism, which keeps a check on whether the receiver has received or not if there is no answer from the receiver. So it makes it more reliable handshaking method, this thing. Again, handshaking can be of two types, whether it will be source initiated or destination initiated. So this is the diagram for source initiated transfer using handshaking. So this is the block diagram. So what does it show us? It shows that there are two lines now. Earlier there was only one strobe, now there are two. One is data valid, which is similar to strobe, and then there is this acknowledgement data accepted, and data bus is already there. So very simple. First of all, the source will put data on the data bus, then it will put on this data valid signal after some time, put on this data valid signal, fine, and this will tell the destination the data is on the data bus is valid. Destination unit will accept this data. After accepting, it will put on the acknowledgement, this accepted. Once this accepted is on, then only these two signals will be put off, because this means the receiver has accepted the data. So this is an acknowledgement signal. So the same what I was saying can be summarized in this. So the first thing what will happen, first data will be placed on the bus, then data valid will be put on here, then the destination unit will accept the data, it will enable the data accepted line, this thing. Then when it will enable this thing, then these two will be disabled. So disable data valid, invalidate data on bus. Then finally this will be put down, that means disable data accepted line, and the transmission is complete. So ready to accept data, that means it will again come to the initial state. So then the process may again start. This diagram is for the destination initiated transfer. Handshaking, but which one? Destination initiated. So what will happen here? Again, there will be two lines, but instead of uh, this data valid and data accepted, there will be ready for data which will go from destination to source, which means in this case destination will tell the source that I am ready for accepting data. So that, so the first thing should be this. So the first thing will be destination will tell I am ready for accepting data. Then after some time, data bus, data will be put on the data bus, then data valid would be on. Then this will accept the data. After some time, when it has completely accepted the data, it will give an acknowledgement by this. It will put off the ready for data, means I have accepted the data, I have received the data, and then after this is down, these two may also be put down by the source. So the same theory can be read here. So the first thing will be started by destination unit. It will tell that I am ready to accept the data. It will enable the ready for data line. Because of this thing, the source will place data on bus. It will enable data valid. Once this is done, the destination will accept the data and then disable ready for data, this thing. Then because of this, these two will be disabled. So disable data valid, invalidate data on bus, then go to initial stage, and the process may repeat itself. It may be cyclic then. So this was all about methods of asynchronous data transfer. Now another subtopic of asynchronous data transfer is asynchronous serial transfer. Again, we should know that a transfer may be serial or it may be parallel. When a number of bits are transmitted at the same time, this is called parallel transfer. And when bits are transmitted one by one through a single wire, this is called serial transfer. So, um, if for example there are n wires, and that means n bits will be transmitted at a time, so this will be called an 8-bit parallel transfer. But if there is only one line, one wire, only one bit will be transmitted at a time, this will be called a serial transfer. Why do we use serial transfers? Obviously parallel transfer is very much, it is a better than serial transfer, but obviously it will be costly. When you have to go for long range distances, a parallel transmission line will be costly because we have to put many parallel wires. If you want to cut down the cost, you use a serial transfer, you use only a single wire. So then again, serial transmission may be synchronous or it may be asynchronous. So what is synchronous? When both the source and destination share a common clock. If they don't share a common clock, it is asynchronous. In synchronous, bits will be transmitted continuously at a certain rate. Here, it will not be transmitted continuously in asynchronous. It will be active only when there is a need. For example, keyboard wants to send something to the CPU. So in that thing, it is better to go for asynchronous because keyboard doesn't always send data to the CPU. It is occasionally. Most of the time, the line will remain idle. So in asynchronous serial transfer, what do we do? Since we have no synchronization here, how will the receiver know that data is coming or not? So we need to add special bits. So there is the character which needs to be sent. So let us say we are talking of CPU and monitor. So CPU wants to send some character A, B, C to the monitor. So that is a character. Its length will be 8 bits: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this 8-bit character CPU wants to send to the monitor through asynchronous serial transfer, say for example. So it has to attach one bit extra from here, that will be called a start bit, and 2 bits extra from here, these will be called stop bits. The format depends on the method used. In this method, 2 bits are used as stop bits and 1 bit is used as start bit. What is the purpose of these extra 3 bits? The purpose is that this start bit will tell the monitor that data is coming, and this will tell character has ended. Now in the future a new character will come. Okay. Start bit is usually 0. So if a 0 comes, that means after this a character will come. And stop bit is usually 1. So there will be 1 and 1. The diagram itself shows here higher voltage level means 1 and 1. So it is 0. And these 8 are the actual character which need to be sent. So in this method of transfer, if I want to send one character, I need 11 bits. One character is 8 bits, and these 1, 2, and 3 bits are extra. So for transmitting one character, I need 11 bits in this example. A character is sent by the transmitter it is detected by the receiver based on certain rules. So the rules are the same that what I was telling you, that if I have to send a character, then if I don't have to send anything, the line is kept in one state. If I have to send something, the first bit should be 0. Character follows this first bit, and when the last bit is transmitted, there will be at least these 1 and 2, this 1 or 2 ones which represent stop. In the same topic, there is a concept called baud rate. So this baud rate is specific to asynchronous serial transfer. So whenever we say asynchronous serial transfer, there comes a thing called baud rate. So what is baud rate? It is defined as the rate at which serial information is transmitted. Baud rate is a rate at which serial information is transmitted. So it is not just information, it is serial information is transmitted. So we will take a question here. The question says, this is a numerical exam question. So it says 10 characters per second with an 11-bit format in an asynchronous serial transmission. That means we have an asynchronous serial transmission, and in 1 second 10 characters are being sent. What is the format? It is 11-bit format, means the same format which we just saw in here, this format, 11-bit format. So the format is 11-bit, 10 characters are being sent per second, and it is given that it is asynchronous serial transmission. We have to find out what is the transfer rate, how many baud is the transfer rate. And the second part of the numerical says, what is the time for transmission of 1 bit? How much time it will take to transmit 1 bit? This is a very simple numerical. So we say that since 10 characters are transmitted per second, it is given. That means how many bits will be transmitted per second? Since one character, for one character you need 11 bits, it's given. So 10 into 11 becomes 110. So that means 110 bits will be transmitted per second. So this means the transfer rate is 110 baud. So we use this term baud here because this is asynchronous serial transfer, right? So why did we multiply this 10 by 11? Because it is given it is an 11-bit format. Out of these 11 bits, 8 bits will be of character, 1 bit will be of start, and 2 bits will be of stop. Okay, now coming to second part, what is the time for transmission of 1 bit? Again, 10 characters per second. If 10 characters are transmitted in 1 second, that means one character will be transmitted in 1 by 10, that is 0.1 seconds. Since one character needs 11 bits for transmission, so 11 bits will be transmitted in 0.1 seconds. That implies 1 bit will be transmitted in 0.1 divided by 11, which comes out to be this many seconds. This implies the bit time, that is the time to transmit 1 bit, is equivalent to this thing, which is the same as
9.09 milliseconds. Let us take another numerical now. So this question says, how many characters per second can be transmitted over a 1200 baud line in each of the following modes? Assume that a character has 8 bits. So we have to tell how many characters per second. And there are 3 cases given, and it is also given the transfer rate is also given, that it is 1200 baud. And we come here at the first part, synchronous serial transmission. If the serial transmission is synchronous, we don't need any start R or stop bits, because start bit, stop bits, these are used only in asynchronous transfer. In synchronous, there is no need of these bits. So to transmit one character here, we need only these 8 bits, nothing extra. So since 1200 bits are transferred per second, divided by 8, 8 is the number of bits in one character, so this comes out to be 150 characters per second. So in synchronous serial transmission, 150 characters will be transmitted per second. Second part is asynchronous serial transmission, and it is given there will be 2 stop bits. So start bit is also a must, so there obviously will be 1 start bit, 2 stop bits, that it makes it 3, and 8 bits for character makes it 11. So that means in this mode of transfer, 11 bits will be used to transmit one character. So this 1200 number of bits transmitted per second divided by the size of a character, size of a character plus the additional bits, which makes it 109 characters per second. And in the C part, it says that there is only one stop bit, that makes this 10, not 11, 10 this time. So it comes out to be 120 characters per second. Now moving on to another subtopic of asynchronous data transfer. The name of this topic is asynchronous communication interface. It is also called universal asynchronous receiver transmitter, UART, because it has a receiver as well as a transmitter in it. So, and it is an asynchronous thing, so it is called a universal asynchronous receiver transmitter. So we will see the structure of organization of this type of interface. We already studied an interface. All it is the same, almost the same. So this is the diagram of this. This represents an asynchronous communication interface. So if you see into this, this is the same diagram. We have already studied this. So this says that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 main registers in this interface. There are buses, fine. From the CPU, a bus is coming, a bidirectional data bus, because data may go to the CPU or come from the CPU. This data will first be put in a buffer called bus buffer. It is a register here. Then it may be transmitted further, and there is this interface will have some control and address buses also. The address bus will be this thing, which will select this interface, because there will be many interfaces. You have to choose which interface you have to select. So this is the chip select. This will select this interface. Then there will be register select, and because there are 1, 2, 3, 4 registers, so which of these 4 you currently need to use depends on this thing. But obviously for 4 things you need 2 bits, so it cannot run alone. It uses a combination with this read or write to use these 4 things. So that thing is here in the table. It shows chip select. So we know chip select, if this is 0, then this chip will not be selected, so there will be no transmission. Data bus will be in high impedance state. If this chip select is 1, then only there will be some work. Good. Now this is 1. Now which of these 4 registers I have to use depends on these 2 things. So let us, for example, say write means 0, read means 1. So if RS is 0 and this is 0, so 0 0, the first register will be selected. 1 0, the second will be selected. 0 1, third will be selected. This one will be selected, and 1 1, this will be selected. Okay. Then what is this? Since the external peripheral is a slow device, and this is serial transmission, asynchronous serial transmission, that means on this line 1 by 1 bits will be transmitted. But since this transmitter register is a register, it may be, for example, of 8 bits. So 8 bits come from the CPU. For example, character A comes. A means 8 bits. So 8 bits are here. They cannot be transmitted as a whole. So we need a shift register. Shift register, the first bit will go here. It will be shifted outside. Then this all the bits will come here. Then shift register will move bits one by one, one by one. So the property of shift register is it shifts the bits. So it will move 1 bit out, and then second bit out, third bit out. So it will automatically be a serial communication. So this serial communication becomes possible only because of this shift register. In the same way, if the data is coming, for example, from a monitor or some far away place, so this will be one by one bits will come. So there will be shift register. The first bit will come here. When the second bit will come, the first will move to a next place. Then the third will come, it will move to a next place. And when this register is filled, then only the data will be transmitted further. Again, when the data will come from an asynchronous way, in an asynchronous way, it will be of, for example, 11 bits. So when all the 11 bits are aggregated here, then the stop and start bits will be removed, and only the main part, the 8 bits, will be moved further to this register to go to the CPU. In the same way, if the CPU has to send some data, the data will be only 8 bits. That 8 will come further, and that 8 will be converted to 11 bits. Stop and start bits will be added to it. Fine, start from here, stop from here, and then only they will be transmitted. The transmitter will also have certain clock, and the receiver also. What is the role of these two registers then? This status register contains many bits. For example, one bit is there which represents the status of receiving. So if something has been received, that bit will tell the CPU it has been received, or something has to be sent, the CPU will see if I can send that or not. For example, there is a transmission bit. So if that is equal to 1, that one means this is empty, transmitter register is empty, then only the CPU will send the data when that is 1. Again, if the CPU wants to know whether data has come or not, it will here check here. If another status bit here will be 1, it means the receiver register is full. So if it is full, that means something has come, then only CPU will read that data. Fine. So there will be 1 bit for transmission. If that is 1, it means this is empty, you can send transmit. Another bit for receiving, if that is 1, that means this is full. So if this is full, that means you can read the data. So this is for checking status. And then there is the control register for controlling purposes.